Hello, dear listener. Welcome to Calm Cloud Chronicles, where imagination drifts and stories unfold. Sit back, relax, and let the journey begin. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more soothing tales. The Garden of Luma. In a quiet valley, nestled between emerald hills and painted skies, lay the Garden of Luma, a place whispered about in folktales, a sanctuary of peace, where burdens melted away like mist in morning light. The garden, said to be tended by Luma herself, was hidden from all except those who needed its magic most. One evening, Alara, a weary traveler, arrived at the valley. The days of her journey had left her heart heavy, and the nights brought restless dreams. When she first stumbled upon the garden's golden gates, she hesitated. Could such a mythical place truly exist? With trembling hands, she pushed them open, stepping into a world unlike any she'd ever seen. The air hummed with a soothing melody, as if nature herself were singing. There was a pool of crystal clear water that mirrored the starlit sky, and flowers that shimmered faintly as though kissed by moonlight. Luma emerged, a serene figure with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of centuries. Her voice was as soft as the rustle of leaves. "Welcome, Alara," Luma said. "This garden grows with intention, healing those who seek its solace. The first step is to let go." Alara wandered through the garden, each step feeling lighter than the last. She found herself drawn to a willow tree with branches cascading like a curtain of green. Beneath its shade, she unburdened her mind, whispering her fears, regrets, and sorrows as the willow's leaves swayed in understanding. Later, she knelt by the luminous pool. Its waters sparkled, inviting her to immerse her hands. As she dipped them, waves of calm rippled through her being, and in that moment, every ache of her body and spirit seemed to dissolve. Finally, Luma handed her a flower, a rare bloom that pulsed softly with light. "Take this," Luma said. "A reminder that healing is not a destination but a journey. As you carry it with you, let its glow guide you toward peace." When Alara left the garden, the valley looked brighter, and her heart felt whole. As she walked away, the flower's light danced softly in her palm, a beacon of hope and renewal. As Alara journeyed onward, the flower's gentle glow became her constant companion, softly illuminating her path. It seemed to pulse with her heartbeat, a reminder of the rhythm of life and the healing she had begun to embrace. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the world in hues of amber and violet, Alara found herself in a small village. Its people were warm and welcoming, yet she noticed a subtle sadness in their eyes. When she asked why, the villagers spoke of a spring deep in the nearby forest. It once brought life to their crops and joy to their hearts, but it had dried up, leaving them in despair. Ilara felt a stirring within her, a quiet resolve. The flower in her hand seemed to shimmer brighter, as if urging her to act. She offered to journey into the forest and find the source of the problem, and the villagers, touched by her kindness, gave her their blessings. The forest was dense and alive with the whispers of ancient trees. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of moss and wildflowers. Guided by the light of her flower, Ilara ventured deeper until she reached a clearing where the spring once flowed. All that remained was a barren patch of earth, cracked and silent. Ilara knelt by the dry bed and closed her eyes, seeking the wisdom she had found in the Garden of Luma. She placed the glowing flower gently on the ground, and as its light spread, she whispered words of hope and healing. The air grew still, and for a moment, all was quiet. Then, like a soft breath, a trickle of water emerged from the ground. It grew stronger, the stream sparkling under the moonlight as it began to flow once more. The flower's light intertwined with the water, and the spring seemed to hum with life, as if Luma's magic had answered Ilara's call. When she returned to the village, the people rejoiced. They celebrated not just the return of their spring, but the kindness and courage Ilara had shown. As the night deepened, Ilara rested under the stars, her heart full and her spirit at peace. The flower's light had faded, but Ilara no longer needed it. The lessons of the Garden of Luma, the strength she had discovered within herself, and the joy of helping others now glowed brightly within her, guiding her forward on her journey. As the days turned to weeks, Ilara's journey led her through rolling meadows, misty mountains, and quiet villages. With every step, she carried the warmth of the village's gratitude and the quiet wisdom of the Garden of Luma. Wherever she went, she shared stories of hope and healing, offering encouragement to those she met along the way. One evening, as she rested by a sparkling river under a canopy of stars, she noticed the faint echo of a melody carried by the wind. It was soft yet beckoning, like a gentle lullaby calling her forward. Following the sound, she discovered a circle of ancient stones, overgrown with moss and wildflowers. In the center of the circle stood an old, weathered harp, its strings glowing faintly in the moonlight. Ilara approached the harp, feeling a familiar hum in the air. The harp seemed to resonate with the same magic as the Garden of Luma. She hesitated, unsure of what to do, but the memory of Luma's words, "The first step is to let go," gave her courage. She reached out and plucked a single string, and the melody began to weave itself around her. The air shimmered as the sound formed images of forgotten stories, of people finding their way back to light after darkness. Ilara closed her eyes and played, letting her heart guide her fingers. The harp's song spread far and wide, carried by the wind to villages, forests, and valleys. It reached those who were weary, lifting their spirits, and those who were lost, showing them the way forward. And as the melody filled the night, Alara felt a deep sense of connection, not just to the people and places she had touched, but to the world as a whole. When the last note faded, the harp's glow dimmed, and Alara knew it was time to move on. She left the circle of stones, but the music stayed with her, a reminder of the power of healing and the importance of sharing it with others. As she walked away, the stars above seemed to twinkle brighter, as if celebrating her journey. And in her heart, she carried the lesson she had learned. Healing is not a solitary act. It is a gift we give to ourselves and to those around us, creating ripples of light in the vast tapestry of life. Alara's journey became the subject of whispered tales, spreading far and wide like the melody she had once played on the harp. These stories reached ears she never expected, travelers seeking purpose, villagers yearning for inspiration, and even leaders looking for hope to guide their people. Among those who heard of Alara's journey was a young child named Nero, living in a small fishing village by the sea. Nero had a quiet curiosity about the world beyond his shores, but he had never ventured far from home. When he learned of Alara's courage and kindness, he was inspired to follow in her footsteps. One dawn, with the first light of the sun painting the waves in gold, Nero set out on his own journey. He carried with him only the essentials and a journal to record his adventures. Along the way, he sought out places of beauty and mystery, forests that whispered secrets, lakes that mirrored the heavens, and hills that touched the sky. Though their paths never crossed, Nero felt a connection to Alara, as if her stories were guiding him. He left small tokens in places he visited, hoping they might bring comfort to future travelers. Sometimes it was a carved stone, other times a folded leaf with a message scrawled in charcoal: "You are not alone." In time, Nero found his own Garden of Luma, though it was not the same as the one in the valley. For him, it was a hidden cove along the shore where the waves sang gentle lullabies and the sand shimmered with flecks of gold. Sitting there, surrounded by the infinite rhythm of the ocean, he discovered his own kind of healing. And as he returned home, wiser and filled with stories of his own, he carried forth the same spirit as Alara, a spirit of healing and wellness, of connection and kindness. Together, through the ripples of their actions, they became part of a larger, ever-growing tale of renewal and light. Alara's journey was whispered from one voice to another, transforming into threads of stories that spread far beyond the lands she had traversed. The tale of her kindness, courage, and connection wove itself into the fabric of folklore, inspiring others to discover their own gardens of Luma, hidden sanctuaries where healing awaited those willing to embrace it. As years passed, the story grew and evolved, becoming not just a memory but a living guide for those seeking solace and renewal. Villages began planting Gardens of Luma in honor of her journey, small patches of earth filled with vibrant flowers, whispering willows, and tranquil pools, each meant to offer peace to weary hearts. Children would gather around these sacred places, sharing tales of Alara, the harp, and the luminous flower. One such child was Livia, a young dreamer with an endless imagination. Her heart was set on finding the original Garden of Luma, the legendary sanctuary where Alara had first discovered healing. With the blessing of her village, she set out on an adventure fueled by curiosity and hope. Livia's journey was filled with wonder and challenges, but her determination never wavered. Along the way, she met others, travelers and seekers, each with their own stories of searching for peace. Together, they formed a quiet bond, supporting one another and finding small joys in the shared journey. Though the Garden of Luma remained a mystery, Livia discovered that the spirit of the garden lived not in a single place but in the connections she formed, the acts of kindness she offered, and the moments of stillness she embraced. By the time she returned home, she realized the garden was never lost. It had grown within her. Livia shared her revelations with her village, encouraging them to see their own inner gardens. Inspired, they began to nurture healing not just in the physical spaces they had planted but within their hearts. The story of the garden and those who sought it became more than a tale. It became a way of life, passed down through generations. As generations passed, the story of Alara, Livia, and the Gardens of Luma became a cornerstone of wisdom and hope. It evolved into a tradition where communities would gather under the stars to tell tales of healing, wellness, and the journeys that led them there. Each storyteller added their own voice, enriching the narrative and connecting it to the world around them. One storyteller, an elder named Amra, had a gift for bringing the tales to life. Amra spoke not just of gardens and glowing flowers but of the invisible threads that tied humanity together, the shared struggles, the acts of kindness, and the moments of triumph that illuminated the darkest of days. As Amra told these tales, listeners would close their eyes and imagine their own journey, planting seeds of healing in their hearts. One night, under a brilliant full moon, Amra shared a new twist to the story. The gardens, she said, are not just places we visit, they are reflections of ourselves. Every time we offer a kind word, every time we forgive, and every time we choose hope over fear, we plant a garden within. And like any garden, it needs tending, it needs care, patience, and love. The words resonated deeply with everyone present. That night, as they returned to their homes, they began to notice the gardens within, the small moments that brought them peace, the acts of kindness that lifted their spirits, and the connections that made them feel whole. From then on, the story was no longer about finding a mythical sanctuary or a glowing flower. It became a celebration of the gardens we carry with us, the ones we nurture through our actions and choices. And with every new day, the story continued to grow, blossoming in ways no one could have imagined. As the story of the Gardens of Luma continued to thrive in the hearts and minds of people far and wide, it took on new forms: songs, paintings, and even quiet rituals that celebrated the beauty of healing and connection. The tale became a thread weaving together communities, reminding them of the power of compassion and the resilience of the human spirit. One day, a wandering poet named Selin, carrying little more than a satchel of parchment and ink, stumbled upon one of the planted Gardens of Luma. The garden shimmered with wildflowers and danced with the laughter of children. Inspired, Selin decided to write the final chapter of Alara's story, as passed down through generations. In Selin's version, Alara, now an elder, returns to the original valley where her journey began. The golden gates stand as they once did, but the garden has transformed. It is no longer tended by Luma alone but has blossomed wildly, as if nourished by the collective hope and love of all who had heard the tale. Alara walks among the flowers, her heart full, and she whispers a message to the wind: "May every step taken in kindness plant a seed of light for those who come after." As Selin finishes writing, the poet places the completed story beneath the largest willow tree in the garden, hoping that it will inspire others as the original tale had inspired Selin. And as Selin walks away, the garden seems to hum softly, as though acknowledging the gesture. This ending, like the garden itself, is meant to grow. Selin knows that each person who hears the story will carry it forward in their own way, adding their voice to the melody of life and healing. As the tale of Alara, the Gardens of Luma, and the lives she touched grew deeper into the roots of storytelling, it began to transcend time. The story was no longer tied to a single era or place. It became a thread connecting generations, cultures, and beliefs. Every retelling added new layers of meaning, making the tale a living, breathing entity, shaped by the dreams and hopes of those who shared it. One day, a stargazer named Orion heard the tale and wondered if the gardens extended beyond the earth itself. With a heart full of curiosity, Orion began mapping constellations, imagining that perhaps the stars themselves formed celestial gardens of Luma, a sanctuary that watched over the planet, offering guidance to those who felt lost. Orion's idea inspired others to look skyward. Artists painted galaxies filled with glowing flowers, and poets wrote verses about stars whispering secrets of healing. The gardens became a symbol not just of earthly wellness but of universal connection, a reminder that no matter where one wandered, they were always part of something greater. One night, as Orion gazed at the heavens, a shooting star streaked across the sky, leaving behind a trail of light. Orion smiled, feeling as though the universe had answered the unspoken question. Perhaps the Gardens of Luma were not confined to the earth or the stars but existed in every corner of existence, in the stillness of a forest, the rhythm of the waves, and the quiet courage of a heart choosing hope. As the narrative of the Gardens of Luma unfurled across time and space, it became something greater than a single tale. It was a collective dream, woven into the hearts of all who heard it. Each person who embraced the story added their own flourish, shaping it into a tapestry of shared humanity and hope. In a distant mountain village, where the wind carried whispers of forgotten songs, an artist named Elira decided to honor the gardens in a unique way. Elira gathered fragments of nature, fallen leaves, stones smoothed by rivers, and flowers blooming in hidden nooks, and combined them into intricate sculptures. These creations were placed along mountain trails, small but vibrant reminders of healing and renewal for passing travelers. One such traveler, Kiran, stumbled upon these sculptures during a moment of doubt in his own life. The quiet beauty of the art spoke to him, offering a sense of clarity he hadn't felt in years. Inspired, Kiran composed music based on the sculptures, crafting melodies that mirrored their simplicity and grace. His compositions, soft and serene, became known as Songs of Luma and were shared far and wide. Over time, the garden's essence grew beyond storytelling. It became woven into the actions, creations, and connections of countless individuals. Each act of kindness, each moment of reflection, each step taken toward healing became part of its legacy. The Gardens of Luma were no longer a physical place. They were an eternal presence, living in the choices people made and the hope they nurtured. The story of the Gardens of Luma had become so profound that it seemed to echo through every corner of the world, and beyond. Its influence was felt not just in the lives of those who heard it, but in the very essence of the earth itself. As more people embraced the story and planted figurative seeds of kindness in their hearts, the world began to shift in small, beautiful ways. Cities were inspired to create spaces of quiet reflection, pockets of green amidst the bustle, where people could pause and reconnect with their inner gardens. Schools began teaching children not just about knowledge but about empathy, mindfulness, and the importance of nurturing both themselves and others. Artists continued to create works that celebrated the themes of healing and interconnectedness, turning the story into a movement that transcended time and borders. One day, in a quiet library nestled in a bustling metropolis, a young writer named Elira came across an ancient book titled The Garden of Luma, a tale of healing. As she turned the pages, she realized that the story was not complete. It was waiting for its next chapter. Elira decided to write it, blending her own experiences and dreams into the narrative. She imagined new characters who continued the journey, finding gardens in the stars, the seas, and even within their friendships. Elira's chapter was soon shared far and wide, inspiring others to write their own. These stories became a living archive, passed from hand to hand and heart to heart. Each edition expanded the original tale, transforming it into something more than a single story. It became a chorus of voices, each singing of hope, renewal, and the power of collective healing. And so, the Gardens of Luma grew, not just as tales, but as a way of living, spreading light and compassion in every corner of the world. They became a testament to the idea that healing is not an end but an ongoing journey, one that connects us all in a shared tapestry of growth and wellness. The architects of renewal. The Gardens of Luma were no longer secret, no longer mythical places hidden in the world's forgotten corners. Instead, they became the vision of a global movement, a collective effort led by dreamers, thinkers, and builders who called themselves the architects of renewal. This group believed that the Gardens of Luma could be brought to every community, not through magic but through intention, creativity, and compassion. Led by Mira, an urban planner with a gift for bringing people together, the architects began transforming barren lands, neglected spaces, and even bustling city blocks into vibrant gardens of healing. Each garden was designed with the community in mind, reflecting the culture, history, and needs of its people. Myra's vision wasn't just about planting flowers. It was about creating spaces where people could gather, connect, and thrive. Sculptors carved benches that invited quiet reflection, engineers designed fountains that harnessed rainwater, and storytellers crafted murals that celebrated the local community's triumphs and resilience. As the gardens grew, so did their impact. People who once felt isolated found themselves drawn to these spaces, sharing stories, ideas, and acts of kindness. Musicians played melodies inspired by the gardens, artists painted their interpretations of renewal, and children, who once had nowhere to play, ran laughing among the wildflowers. But the architect's work didn't stop there. Mira knew that healing wasn't just about physical spaces, it was about empowering people. The movement taught communities how to care for their gardens, fostering a sense of ownership and pride. People began planting their own micro-gardens, transforming windowsills and rooftops into havens of life and light. Over time, the Gardens of Luma evolved. No longer tied to a single vision, they became expressions of the people who nurtured them, each garden unique, alive, and interconnected. And with every new garden planted, the architects of renewal saw their mission fulfilled. Healing was no longer a distant dream but a living reality, built by many hands and shared by many hearts. As the architects of renewal continued their work, the movement began to take on new dimensions, shaped by the challenges and opportunities of an ever-changing world. The Gardens of Luma became not only symbols of healing but also hubs of innovation, fostering creativity, resilience, and sustainable living. In some communities, the gardens were transformed into living classrooms, where children learned about ecology, biodiversity, and the importance of harmony between humans and nature. Scientists collaborated with the architects to introduce systems like vertical gardens and aquaponics, demonstrating how even the densest urban spaces could be turned into thriving ecosystems. In others, the gardens evolved into centers for mental health and well-being. Counselors, meditation instructors, and healers used the serene environments to host sessions and workshops. People who once felt lost or overwhelmed found solace in these spaces, where they could reflect and reconnect with themselves in the gentle embrace of nature. The architects also began to focus on technology as a bridge between tradition and the future. They developed a network of virtual gardens, designed for those who couldn't access physical spaces. Through immersive augmented reality experiences, anyone, whether confined to a hospital bed or living in a remote area, could walk through a virtual Garden of Luma, feel the calming presence of the streams, hear the birdsong, and remember the interconnectedness of life. One of the most inspiring transformations occurred when communities facing environmental challenges adopted the gardens as part of their recovery efforts. Coastal towns affected by rising sea levels planted gardens of mangroves to restore their shorelines. Arid regions established gardens that used solar-powered irrigation, reviving the land while creating spaces of beauty and refuge. These gardens not only healed the earth but also brought people together, fostering a sense of collective resilience. As the movement spread across continents, the story of the Gardens of Luma became intertwined with the people who nurtured it. Each garden reflected the unique character of its community, yet all were united by the same purpose: to bring light, healing, and hope to the world. And so, the legacy of the Gardens of Luma became a living testament to the human spirit's capacity for renewal. Through hands that planted seeds, hearts that sought connection, and minds that envisioned a better future, the gardens grew, not just in the soil but in the very fabric of existence. The gardens as a philosophy. The Gardens of Luma were no longer simply physical spaces or collaborative projects. They began to symbolize a fundamental shift in how people viewed their relationship with themselves, others, and the planet. This philosophy was rooted in three core principles: interconnection, restoration, and growth. Interconnection. The gardens taught people that everything is woven together: humans, nature, and even the unseen. This understanding led to deeper empathy, fostering dialogue between communities that had long been divided. In areas previously marked by conflict, gardens were planted collaboratively, blending traditions and healing old wounds. The act of nurturing the land became a symbol of nurturing each other. To solidify this idea, a global initiative called the Luma Pact was born. This pact encouraged individuals and nations to recognize their shared responsibility for the earth and its people. It included promises to protect biodiversity, build inclusive spaces, and prioritize collective well-being over competition. Restoration. The gardens were now not just places of reflection but models of renewal. Environmental scientists used the gardens as research hubs for restoring damaged ecosystems, proving that balance could be regained even in areas affected by extreme deforestation, pollution, and climate change. Communities began hosting annual restoration festivals, celebrating the regenerative power of nature. During these festivals, people shared stories of renewal, not just of the land but of themselves. Themes of forgiveness, resilience, and finding strength in adversity took center stage. Growth. More than just returning to a state of peace, the gardens embodied forward motion. They encouraged people to imagine futures that honored the past while pushing boundaries. The gardens became incubators for innovative ideas. Universities built research wings beside gardens, fostering breakthroughs in sustainability and mental health practices. Architects and engineers drew inspiration from the garden's natural designs, incorporating biomimicry into urban planning. Schools began integrating garden-based learning into their curricula, teaching children not just to solve problems but to cultivate solutions with care and patience. The gardens and the cosmos inspired by Orion's celestial vision, humanity began wondering, could the philosophy of the Gardens of Luma extend beyond the Earth? Space agencies collaborated with visionaries to imagine gardens on distant planets, biodomes filled with plants that would travel alongside astronauts to nourish their bodies and minds. These cosmic gardens symbolized hope, a promise that wherever humans journeyed, they could carry the spirit of Luma with them. Back on Earth, artists created installations that projected constellations intertwined with garden imagery. These works inspired viewers to think about their place not just in their immediate world but in the vast tapestry of existence. A living legacy. Perhaps the most profound depth of the Gardens of Luma lay in their ability to adapt and grow. They became more than a story, a movement, or a philosophy. They became a living legacy, passed down through hands planting seeds and hearts nurturing connections. People understood that every act of kindness, every step toward healing, added to the ever-growing garden. Over centuries, the gardens transcended time, leaving behind not monuments but practices, a way of living that celebrated renewal, unity, and wonder. And though the physical gardens might bloom and fade, their essence would endure, rooted in humanity itself. As the Gardens of Luma philosophy continued to blossom, it began transforming the way humanity approached not only healing but creativity itself. The act of tending a garden, whether physical, emotional, or metaphorical, became a symbol of the creative process, reminding people that every masterpiece begins as a seed, and every journey requires patience and care. A global symphony inspired by this philosophy, musicians, poets, and storytellers across the globe came together to create the Symphony of Luma. It was unlike any traditional performance. It blended sounds from nature, voices from diverse cultures, and the rhythms of everyday life. Streams of water, the rustle of leaves, and the whisper of wind formed the foundation of the symphony, while artists contributed their interpretations in melody and verse. The symphony was performed in gardens large and small, uniting audiences in shared reflection. Its themes of renewal resonated deeply, evoking memories of personal trials and triumphs. People left these performances feeling more connected to themselves and to the world around them. Meanwhile, educators began adopting the Gardens of Luma principles to transform the way people learned and grew. They recognized that true understanding flourished in environments of curiosity, empathy, and collaboration. Schools integrated garden days, sessions where students explored themes of growth, creativity, and interconnectedness through hands-on activities like planting trees, writing poetry, and solving environmental challenges. Scientists and thinkers coined the term blooming minds to describe a state of enlightenment where knowledge, creativity, and compassion intertwined. The Gardens of Luma weren't just shaping landscapes. They were reshaping the very way humanity approached its collective future. As humanity deepened its connection to the Gardens of Luma philosophy, the earth itself seemed to respond. Areas once barren and lifeless began to recover, nurtured by people inspired to care for the planet as they cared for each other. Bees and butterflies returned, forests regenerated, and oceans sparkled with newfound vitality. The Gardens of Luma became a global movement, reminding everyone that healing isn't a destination, it's a way of life. In time, the Gardens of Luma gave rise to something even more profound, a quiet revolution in how humanity defined progress. The movement began as an exploration of healing and interconnection, but it blossomed into a reimagining of what it meant to thrive. A new generation of thinkers emerged, calling themselves the Dream Keepers. These individuals saw themselves as custodians of not only the physical gardens but also the dreams and hopes that had been planted within them. They believed the gardens were living metaphors for the best of humanity, and they set out to expand their legacy in surprising ways. The Dream Keepers hosted gatherings of light, where people from across the globe shared their visions for a better future. Farmers spoke of sustainable practices that honored the earth's rhythms. Inventors shared tools designed to harmonize with nature, rather than exploit it. Storytellers wove narratives of renewal, reminding everyone of the shared threads connecting them. In response to the overwhelming wealth of ideas and stories tied to the gardens, the Dream Keepers established the Libraries of Luma. These libraries were unlike any others. They weren't just collections of books but sensory archives. Each library housed holograms of restored landscapes, recordings of community songs, and interactive timelines that showed the ripple effects of small, healing actions. People visiting the libraries didn't just gain knowledge, they felt inspired to act. Whether by planting their own gardens, mentoring someone in need, or simply being more mindful in their everyday lives, visitors left the libraries of Luma with renewed purpose. Not all gardens grew in bustling cities or vibrant villages. The dream keepers recognized the need for quiet spaces, gardens tucked away in the wilderness, untouched by technology or crowds. These silent gardens were left to grow wild, becoming sanctuaries for endangered species and havens for solitary seekers. Travelers who stumbled upon these hidden wonders often described a sense of profound peace, as if the gardens themselves carried whispers of all the kindness, love, and hope that had been sown into the world. As humanity continued to evolve, the spirit of the Gardens of Luma adapted to meet the needs of each new era. It became clear that the gardens were more than a story, more than a movement. They were a promise. A promise that healing was always possible, that growth never ceased, and that light could always be found, no matter the darkness. And so, the Gardens of Luma lived on, not just in soil or stone but in the hearts of people everywhere. They became a guiding light for generations yet to come, forever blooming in the infinite garden of existence. With the Gardens of Luma now a living legacy of growth and connection, their reach extended beyond expectations, rippling into dimensions that celebrated the unity of existence itself. This chapter in their evolution embraced the idea that the gardens had become more than physical spaces or even guiding philosophies. They were symbols of humanity's boundless capacity to nurture light in the darkest corners of life. A symphony across realms. At the heart of this expansion was the creation of the Resonance Project, led by visionaries who sought to weave the gardens into every aspect of the human experience: physical, mental, emotional, and even metaphysical. They believed that healing could transcend barriers, merging art, technology, and spirituality to create immersive experiences. Under the Resonance Project, gardens became multisensory spaces. Holographic blooms danced alongside real ones, while gentle harmonies played, adapting to the presence and mood of visitors. People described these gardens as deeply transformative, saying they felt as though they were being serenaded by the earth itself. The project blurred the lines between reality and imagination, opening new avenues for understanding the interconnectedness of life. Guardians of the spirit. In this era, the gardens also sparked a global embrace of mindfulness and presence. Communities celebrated garden days, where screens were silenced, voices were hushed, and people simply listened to their breath, to their surroundings, and to each other. These days became sacred pauses, moments to honor the healing that thrived in stillness. Spiritual leaders began incorporating the gardens into practices that unified diverse beliefs. While one person meditated beneath a willow, another offered prayers of gratitude beside flowing streams. People from varying backgrounds discovered that while their rituals might differ, their intent, healing and renewal, was shared. This realization strengthened bonds across cultures and beliefs. Threads beyond time, the Gardens of Luma began inspiring visions of existence beyond the physical world. Philosophers wondered, could the gardens be eternal, tied to humanity's consciousness itself? Artists created symbolic representations of the gardens in paintings, music, and literature, each a reflection of the inner gardens within the human spirit. As humanity reached new heights, exploring the stars, venturing into unknown realms, the gardens followed. Space travelers carried seedlings to distant planets, planting roots not just in soil but in dreams of unity that bridged galaxies. And as the gardens spread across lands and stars, they came to symbolize one simple, profound truth, that the act of nurturing, whether a flower, a community, or oneself, was a light that could guide humanity endlessly forward. The Gardens of Luma had grown beyond physical borders, becoming a rhythm that pulsed through every aspect of existence. As humanity ventured to new planets and forged connections with distant celestial realms, the gardens became a symbol of life itself, a testament that no matter the terrain or the challenge, there was always the potential for growth and harmony. Interstellar pioneers, inspired by the Gardens of Luma, carried with them seeds from Earth, embedding them in the soils of unknown worlds. These seeds weren't chosen for their aesthetic beauty alone. They were symbols of resilience, plants that could thrive under the harshest conditions. When the first flowers blossomed under alien skies, they were seen as miracles, proof that life could flourish anywhere if nurtured with care. But the resonance of the gardens extended further than biology. Philosophers began to postulate that the Gardens of Luma were an expression of a universal force, what some called the luminal thread. They believed that just as stars were bound by gravity, all living beings were connected by this unseen thread, a conduit for empathy, understanding, and renewal. As humanity embraced these ideas, dream researchers discovered something extraordinary. The Gardens of Luma had begun to appear in the collective dreams of people across cultures and galaxies. This phenomenon, called the dreaming web, became a subject of fascination. In dreams, the gardens manifested differently for everyone. For one person, it might be a field of golden poppies swaying in the wind. For another, a tranquil forest bathed in starlight. Despite their differences, the dreams all carried the same feeling, a profound sense of peace and connection. People woke from these dreams inspired, often with newfound clarity or solutions to their personal struggles. Dreamers began to collaborate, sharing their visions and mapping out a shared dream garden that seemed to grow organically in their collective subconscious. Artists and architects drew upon these visions to create physical spaces that mirrored the gardens of the dream world, blurring the lines between imagination and reality. On Earth, the garden philosophy continued to evolve. Inspired by the dreaming web, the dream keepers began constructing what they called luminal beacons. These were towering structures built in key locations, deserts, mountaintops, and even deep-sea plateaus. Each beacon was a synthesis of art, technology, and nature, designed to emit soft light and subtle vibrations that resonated with the natural world. The purpose of the beacons was not just symbolic. They served as focal points for healing, places where people could gather during times of crisis to meditate, share stories, and find solace. The beacons also helped restore ecological balance, using advanced technology to purify air and water, restore depleted soil, and create microhabitats for endangered species. The greatest of these beacons was built on a once barren asteroid floating between Earth and Mars.
2 words.
Named Astra Luma, it became a sanctuary for interstellar travelers, a resting point where they could reconnect with the essence of their journeys. Astra Luma's beacon emitted a gentle light visible across vast distances, a reminder that the spirit of the gardens transcended even the void of space. As centuries passed, the Gardens of Luma remained an ever-present force in the lives of all beings, evolving with the needs and dreams of each generation. Some believed that the gardens were guiding humanity toward a higher purpose, a future where compassion and creativity reigned supreme. Others felt the gardens were simply a mirror, reflecting the best of what humanity could be when it chose to nurture instead of destroy. In the quiet corners of the universe, whispers spread of a new chapter yet to unfold. The seeds of the gardens had taken root in places no one had yet seen, in the hearts of beings yet to be met, in the dreams of planets yet to awaken, and in the spaces where light and shadow danced in eternal harmony. As the Gardens of Luma expanded beyond physical and philosophical boundaries, they started to redefine humanity's understanding of purpose and existence. The story was no longer tied to individuals or communities but became a tale of universal unity, a cosmic symphony of healing and growth that touched every corner of life. Among the distant stars, the seeds of Luma carried profound meaning. They symbolized hope and renewal, bridging the gap between Earth and the universe beyond. Scientists and dreamers worked together to design living spacecraft, vessels filled with miniature ecosystems that carried the essence of the Gardens of Luma into the cosmos. These spacecraft were more than machines. They were sanctuaries, offering travelers a place to reconnect with nature while exploring the unknown. The gardens on board thrived under artificial sunlight, their blooms swaying gently as if in tune with the vibrations of the stars themselves. Astronauts often described moments of pure serenity as they tended to the plants, feeling as though they were nurturing more than life. They were nurturing the future. One day, on a distant planet where the atmosphere shimmered with iridescent hues, a spacecraft landed to plant its first cosmic garden. As the seeds took root in the alien soil, a new kind of beauty emerged. The plants adapted, their shapes and colors evolving to reflect the planet's unique environment. This garden became a symbol of harmony, a testament to humanity's ability to bring life and connection wherever it journeyed. Back on Earth, the Gardens of Luma inspired the creation of the Luminal Bridge, a global initiative that sought to unite cultures through shared experiences of growth and healing. Architects and visionaries designed expansive spaces where elements from diverse gardens merged, creating environments that celebrated the beauty of difference and the power of unity. The Luminal Bridge wasn't just physical, it was also digital. Using advanced technology, people could visit gardens in distant lands through immersive virtual reality experiences. A farmer in Africa could explore the cherry blossoms of Japan. A child in Brazil could wander through the forests of Scandinavia. These experiences fostered empathy, reminding humanity that while the gardens might bloom differently, their essence was universal. As humanity embraced the Gardens of Luma in every facet of life, a new tradition emerged. Sculptors began creating whispering stones, small monuments placed in gardens that held inscriptions of wisdom, hope, and resilience. These stones became silent storytellers, carrying the words of those who had found healing within the gardens. Travelers often left messages behind, carving their thoughts or poetry into the stones. Over time, the gardens became archives of emotion and experience, capturing the collective spirit of those who had nurtured them. The whispering stones connected generations, allowing future visitors to hear the echoes of the past and add their own voices to the tapestry. The Gardens of Luma had reached every corner of existence, from the depths of the ocean to the farthest reaches of space, from the quiet hearts of villages to the bustling centers of cities. They were more than places or philosophies, they were promises. Promises that no matter where one stood, healing was possible, connection was real, and growth was infinite. And as humanity continued to evolve, the gardens carried their spirit forward, blooming endlessly in the soil, the stars, and the hearts of all who chose to nurture the light within. With every thread we weave, the Gardens of Luma become richer, stretching into realms of imagination, connection, and discovery. Let's explore the next layer of their universal impact, a dimension where the gardens evolve to touch the intangible aspects of existence itself. The harmonies of existence. As the Gardens of Luma flourished across planets and stars, researchers and artists began to explore whether the gardens had a resonance that extended beyond the physical senses. They called it the harmonic of Luma, a frequency of healing energy that could be felt, not seen or heard, but experienced as a deep sense of peace. Experiments revealed that spending time in the gardens caused subtle shifts in individuals' emotional and mental states, almost as if the gardens were singing to them in an ancient, silent language. Musicians and composers worked to replicate this harmonic, creating symphonies that resonated with the same tranquil frequency. These compositions became known as resonance suites, music that soothed anxiety, deepened meditation, and even inspired moments of pure clarity. This discovery led to the creation of harmonic sanctuaries, spaces where the gardens and their music worked in tandem. These sanctuaries became places of profound transformation, where people seeking meaning, solace, or inspiration could experience the full embrace of the garden's essence. The tapestry of time. As humanity ventured further into the cosmos, historians began to view the Gardens of Luma as a living chronicle of existence. Each garden held the stories of those who had nurtured it, their joys, their struggles, their growth. To honor this legacy, a project was undertaken to weave these tales into a literal tapestry, the Threads of Luma. This immense textile was created aboard Astra Luma, the beacon sanctuary between Earth and Mars. Using advanced technology, the tapestry wove itself, responding to the stories, images, and emotions shared by visitors. Over time, it became a vibrant, living work of art, a universal archive of humanity's journey, told through the lens of the gardens. Travelers from every corner of existence would come to Astra Luma to contribute their threads. A scientist might share a breakthrough inspired by time spent in a garden, a poet, a verse written beneath an alien sky, a farmer, a photograph of their first harvest. Each contribution became part of the ever-growing tapestry, a reminder that every life, no matter how small, added to the greater whole. The Luma currents. As the gardens continued to expand, explorers discovered phenomena that could only be described as the currents of Luma. These were streams of subtle energy, barely perceptible, yet undeniably present, that seemed to flow between the gardens across the universe. Mystics and scientists alike were fascinated. Some theorized that the currents were a manifestation of the luminal thread, connecting the essence of each garden to the universal web of existence. Others saw them as cosmic rivers, carrying the hopes and dreams planted in one garden to bloom in another. Individuals who encountered the currents often described moments of profound synchronicity, an intuitive sense of being exactly where they needed to be. Pilgrimages began to follow these unseen pathways, with seekers journeying from garden to garden, guided by the currents toward experiences that transformed their lives. Infinite blooming. The most astonishing discovery came centuries after the first seeds of Luma had been planted. By now, the gardens had spread to places humanity could only dream of: black holes, distant moons, even the minds of sentient species light years away. Yet no matter how far they reached, their essence remained the same: an invitation to grow, to heal, and to connect. Some began to believe that the gardens were not of human origin at all, but rather a universal phenomenon, one that humanity had simply rediscovered and made their own. This idea gave rise to the philosophy of infinite blooming, the belief that the Gardens of Luma existed everywhere, in every time and place, waiting for someone to nurture them. This philosophy encouraged people to look for gardens in unexpected places, in acts of kindness, in moments of stillness, in the connections they shared with others. It became a way of life, transcending borders, species, and even dimensions, reminding all who encountered it that the garden was, and had always been, within. The Gardens of Luma now touched every corner of existence, their light a constant reminder that life, in all its forms, was interconnected. With each passing generation, their story grew, not as a fixed narrative but as a living, breathing tapestry, one that would forever expand, carried by the dreams and hopes of all who chose to tend its soil. Thank you for being a part of Calm Cloud Chronicles. What kind of stories help you relax the most? Please let us know in comments below. If you enjoyed this story, let us know by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Until next time, stay peaceful and keep dreaming.